Good morning. This week in Cycle 4, we've been talking a lot about collaborative learning and how it impacts the classroom. One thing that really stands out to me that I've learned in conversations with Sam and in incorporating collaborative learning into my classroom is that the skills needed for it to take place successfully are not necessarily innate. One thing we work on a lot in our classroom is just simply learning how to work together. How to take turns, how to assign different roles when you're working collaboratively. Like I said, it's not something that students just naturally know, and it is something that needs to be explicitly taught. Throughout the week, I do offer my students various opportunities to work collaboratively. For example, our grade level actually does rotations Tuesday through Thursday, each teacher taking a different rotation, or a different content area to teach. So one of our teachers does art, another does science, and I've been assigned to engineering challenges, which is a great opportunity for kids to work collaboratively. And like I mentioned, we do talk a lot about assigning roles, taking turns, all of those norms that need to be established for collaborative learning to be successful. One thing that I found is also really helpful is that in that block of time, I am exclusively working as the facilitator for that activity. I'm not pulling groups, I'm not doing other things. So when those little conflicts arise or when students need help to work through an issue, I'm 100% available to them to do that and to make that experience successful for them. One thing that Sam and I also talked about this week, initially when I first came in, because I'm so big on collaborative learning and how great it can be, I was trying to also incorporate that into all of my ELA centers and all of my math centers. Admittedly, in my ELA centers, it was not as successful as I would have liked it to be. A lot of the reason being because during that time, I'm pulling my guided reading group. And truthfully, that guided reading group really is my highest priority during that time. And what I was finding is that I was trying to conduct my guided reading group over here, and there would be little issues coming up within my collaborative learning groups, and my attention was always taken away from my guided reading group, and it really wasn't as successful as I would have liked it to be. Also, the noise level in my room tended to get really high because kids get excited and they're talking and they're interacting, which is great, but that's not really what I wanted for that specific block of time when I was trying to meet with my reading groups. So I've definitely scaled back on the collaborative efforts that I put into my ELA centers, and I found that math is kind of a middle point. At that time, I am sometimes pulling one or two students or a small group, but that's not a time that I've specifically dedicated to pulling my small groups. There's another time in my math block that I actually pull my math groups. So I am available more to be a facilitator for those groups during that time. So I do typically give my students more collaborative challenges to work on during their math centers. Ultimately, at this point, my goal is for my students to work collaboratively at some point throughout the day, at least once per day. And between our math centers, occasionally our ELA centers, and our engineering challenges and other things that come up along the way, I do think that I've been pretty consistent in getting them opportunities to collaborate pretty consistently. And one thing I've also noticed, just as a final thought, I guess, one thing I've noticed in first grade, I teach first grade, is it works best to have my students working in very small groups. I would say 4 students is probably the maximum that I will go. And a lot of times I'm putting students just in pairs, and again, just really giving them that opportunity to learn those norms and to learn how to work collaboratively. It's a lot easier to do when you're only having to collaborate with one person as opposed to 4 or 5, and really getting them solid on those skills and giving them that solid foundation before they start to go into more challenging efforts that involve collaboration or putting them to larger groups of students. So it's been a great week. I've really enjoyed getting collaborative learning implemented into my classroom and making the necessary changes to make it really successful. So Sam's been a great resource, and I'm looking forward to Cycle 5. See you later.